Alright then, so the upper plateau. Now as usual, we create a new version, yes, and we do this render so that we can compare where we started at, because that's always really nice to see. And there we go, render it out. This is gonna be underscore section 08. So let's look at it real quick. We started with a flat map, of course, but then we had this after changing the height map. We added the marker, started thinking about it more strategically. We added some props. We started working on some of the texturing. Whoops, misclicked it. Then we did more texturing, and here we started doing decals, but they didn't render. And here we did decals, and they do render. And now we're here. Now this is a pretty big change because we did the oasis, but you also notice that there's a lighting change, and that's because I was experimenting with the lighting and then I accidentally pressed Ctrl S by saving it. So we'll go over that, but you can see that the lighting has a really large impact on how the map is seen and observed. But primarily we changed the oasis a bit so that it's more in line in this little valley here. Valley of heat and warmth. And now we're gonna look at the plateau. Now the plateau is primarily ice. Notice that we forgot to kind of highlight this little hill that we have right here, but given that it's such a, like, it's not even yellow, I think we're just gonna leave it at that. But we really should actually be telling the player about this little place. It's just that I think this makes it look a bit too much. Do I have symmetry turned on? Nope. Again, something we forgot during the recap. Make sure you have center by angle if you're making your map. Don't use the diagonal ones because it's gonna mess with your decals. You don't want things to mess with your decals. Alright, I think this is better. Let's just finish that up. We go to paint. We had a value of 0.25, and let's paint it onto this little hill here, making it a bit more readable. Alright, there we go. And then we need to do the same thing on the other side. So let's do that real quick. It's a bit difficult to see where it starts and where it ends, but we can make this work. Alright, and here we go with textures. And then we make it slightly better. There we go, smaller, give it a hard edge. Alrighty then. So there we go. Now we noticed that we had a bit of an issue, and that's that the decal doesn't properly communicate where the slope starts and ends. So we're gonna fix that by changing the height map a tiny bit. We're gonna Control click to set our target value to the height on this end, and we're just gonna move the height map here. There we go. So now it clearly starts on this end. We can blur it slightly again. Whoop. Blur it so that it's not too rough. And we should do this at every place where we kind of are telling the player that, hey, look, starting from here, it's flat. Because then the player clearly understands where it can build its factory and where it can experience issues while building the factory. Now note that I'm using the hotkey 1 through 3 to switch and then left clicking again. All right, there we go. And then blurring it. Oh. And then similarly, we can do it the other way around. And then blurring it again. All right. Same thing here. One. Oh, now it's way too strong and I accidentally set a max height. Click. There we go. And we are gonna, yep. And then we're gonna blur it again. And this kind of guarantees that if a player looks at this edge that we have here, that he understands, oh, okay, that's where it all starts. Alrighty then, there we go. Looking good. That one looks fine. That one looks fine. That one looks good. Looks fine too. And this was the biggest. Let's tweak it slightly. There we go. That one looks decent too. All right. Now we gotta fix some textures again because we messed with the. Now we can remove the texture by holding Alt and then trying to paint. Similarly to how you paint, but then without holding Alt. And we can make these rocks here a bit more. Apparently this is not a rock texture, maybe that's grass. Yep. We can make these rocks here a bit more aligned. Whoa. Alright, gotta put it on a, yep, there we go. And then line it slightly. And this is where the iterative part of creating a map comes from. You're never really done, right? You can see these cliffs here now. We still don't have symmetry turned on. Good. Make sure that if you do this with a center by angle that you do have symmetry turned on, or you're going to be doing a lot of double work. Even though, unless you're being paid, then make sure that symmetry is off. Alright. Alright. Fixing some of these issues here. Oh, and don't put linear brush on if you didn't use that before, because that causes a lot of weird effects that I'm likely going to be seeing in the game. I would really not recommend using linear brush in general. Really removes a sense of control. Now it's a lot more responsive. Alright, gotta remove some of this dirt here too. There we go. Okie dokie, so we fixed some of the ramping issues. Now let's go and place the decals that we were talking about, because that's what we're here for. We're here for placing decals. That's what we like to do all day long. Placing those decals. Now there's all types of decals that we should just give a go, see if they look any good. Typically they can, yeah, I don't know. Oh, these look good. Then people can confuse them. There we go. To accentuate the fact that there are rocks there. Or to make it confusing to people. It really depends on your perspective. And we can add this slide here. I was thinking of adding some racks too, but let's do that in the next video. Now we're dealing here with snow, so whatever we use has to be really soft edged, because if we start using stuff that's really hard edged like this one, that's not very snow-like. Snow doesn't have that pattern in them because it's too soft for that. So we're kind of stuck using these patterns here. Oh, that looks really bad. Quickly select something else. There we go. Alright, let's just start clicking away at it. Sometimes you should really not be thinking and just be clicking. So let's do that for a bit. I'm thinking. Thinking way too much. Really good at following my own advice. That looks cool, but it's way too dense. Alright, let's just try something out, see how it goes. And at this point, it's really just about clicking and seeing what works and what doesn't work. We already used some of those softer edged decals, decals. So let's just use those in a bigger, in a larger quantity right there. Alright, let's see. Oh yeah, I like this one with the that's pretty good. Alright, let's see what we have. No. No, too big. But we can apply this one right there in the corner quite nicely. And then apply the same one right there. Alright, let's see. And there's no real reasoning behind where I place them. I just kind of place them in whatever Let's see what we have. More big snowy. I like this one a lot, but I shouldn't be putting it everywhere because then people will notice. Don't want people to notice. Ooh. Let's see how I can incorporate that one. And let me click here. Put this one on top of it to soften it up a bit. Let's see how that works. That looks okay. Gotta get some more feeling into this. Let's see if there are other. What about this one? No. This one's barely visible. Let's just see. At this point, I'm just choosing all these softer decals because they tend to look better on snow. But as you can see, this is a very long, painstaking process. It's also not necessarily the most interesting one at times. Sometimes it makes you go, wow. Not entirely satisfied with what we have here, but I'm sort of out of inspiration. No, we should definitely not use that one because we're only using it to communicate cliffs. Alright, so I'm not entirely satisfied with what we have. But it's not entirely bad either. Kinda like what I had there. Not really sure why I can't reproduce that here. Let's see if there are other textures that we can use. Desert, no. Red rocks, no. Geothermal, maybe? The interesting thing about decals is that usually there's an even balance between having decals and not having decals. Because one accentuates the other, right? You gotta give your player a place to rest their eyes, sort of. You can only appreciate detail if you know what it looks like when there is none. That's kind of the and for that you need to have places that have very little to no detail. Just like that. This is getting more and more coherent. I think I placed that one just a tad too many times. That's starting to look like something. Like a playable map. All right. Now we can do some other things. Let's go to Swamp, and at Swamp you have these interesting albedos, but they're barely visible. Do they have other ones that are more visible? Too visible. Nah, it's not visible enough. Structure, no. Seraphim, no. Tundra, we can just give that another shot. We've got this dirt. It kind of does look cool. It's just way too visible. We have crystalline alt. No, we definitely ancient earth. No decals there. Generic evergreen 2, desert siren. Let's go over the common ones again. And yeah, I think this is pretty much it. We'll be looking at it for a while and then making changes again. So doesn't have to be perfect the first time. That's kind of the beauty of the entirety of what we're doing here. We can. Nah, it doesn't look that good. Alright, but that's it for this video. And the remainder of the map is essentially doing all of the same things. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be recording that. Instead, I'm going to be recording how we can tweak the lighting a bit to make it look more like, to make it look more consistent.